Which laptop should you buy right now in 2020 for video editing? Well, you came to the right place because this is the ultimate buyer's guide for a video editing laptop on pretty much any budget. So whether you're looking for a laptop under the $600 to $750 range, or the maybe mid $1,500 range, or the high-end range of anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, this video will help you make that decision. If you're new to the channel, my name is Benji Kaiser. This is where you're going to find the best tech and tools for creative professionals. So if that sounds like your kind of place, consider subscribing and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of the future videos. All right, so what can you expect in the order and process of this video? Well, first and foremost, these laptops are going to be priced from lowest to highest in categorical order. There's going to be timestamps in the description below, as well as the timeline of this video, so you can skip ahead or click back or move around and take it in a different order, whatever you want to do. But I've laid out this video in a way that I feel like is the best succinct order for understanding which laptop you should buy. You're going to have laptop recommendations per category and specs and thoughts throughout on each model and its use cases. At the end of the video, you're going to see spec recommendations. So why do I think 8 gigs of RAM is important? Why do I think 16 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM is important for your laptop? And then we're going to see example of component usage in the task manager. One specific category that I'm really going to focus on is going to be RAM, and you're going to see the use case there. Now, there are links in the description below for each one of these laptops, and if you do click one of those links and make a purchase, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you, and that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way, so I always appreciate it when y'all use those links. Now, I can only include so many laptops for this video, or this video would go on for hours and hours. So I've selected 26 laptops that I have experience with and I am most confident in recommending. Also, all of this is possible through your feedback via comments. So if at any time you want to see a certain piece of this video explained more in depth, or you want to have another question that you've had on your mind for many years, or for even just a couple days while you're in your laptop search for creative professional, whether that be video editing, graphic design, photography, so on, please comment below. Please let me know what videos I can make to help you out. That is why this channel exists, to help you guys out. All right, let's jump into the video. The first thing we're going to be talking about is use cases. So are you going to be doing basic 1080p video editing projects? And what I'm talking about here is talking head footage plus some B-roll shots, some background music, and maybe some lower thirds or a few simple overlay graphics. Nothing complex, shorter projects, nothing like 30+ minute projects. That's going to be category 1. Now, each of these categories are going to follow this structure. So make sure you keep an eye on these specs, and you can always reference back here if you're curious, like, okay, what does this category mean? What does he mean by advanced or basic? This is what we're going to base off of the video. Next is advanced 1080p plus basic 4K video editing. So multiple talking head angles, lots of B-roll, color grading. You're gonna have background music, audio effects, multiple audio files, lots of motion graphics, transitions, and overlays. That's gonna be for the advanced 1080p. The basic 4K is gonna be something more like this. Talking head footage, some B-roll, background music, lower thirds, and a few simple overlays. So basic 4K would be these. So just higher quality video with these types of project assets. And then we're going to have the advanced 1080p with this category down here. Next is the advanced 4K video editing projects. It's going to be all of the above plus a higher level of video quality. And the last would be the 6K to 8K video editing projects, all of the above and the highest resolution possible right now on the market. Now, I'm going to say that these laptops are going to be more towards the 6K than the 8K. So if you're, editing footage off of the Red cameras, 6K footage, that's where you're going to be able to get into this. If you're editing crazy 8K footage, honestly, I would not be doing that on a laptop from a personal standpoint. I'd be building out my own desktop computer with like a crazy Threadripper CPU from Ryzen. So definitely keep these in mind as we're going through the categories, because this is how I'm basing these decisions. All right, first and foremost is the basic 1080p video editing projects. The first laptop up on the list is the Lenovo V14. I really like this laptop. It comes with the latest Ryzen 5 4500U, which has a fantastic processor, coming with the AMD Radeon 6 graphics. So this laptop is a great start for basic 1080p video editing. It's a 6-core, 6-thread at 2.3 gigahertz base clock and 4 gigahertz turbo boost. It has 8 gigs of RAM. Now, this is not my top recommendation, as you'll learn later in the video. 8 gigs of RAM is not my top recommendation, but it is a great start. I'd always recommend upgrading this later if you want to get more performance out of your laptop. It comes with 256 gigs of solid-state hard drive, and it is a 14-inch full HD display, reaching a color gamut range of 50% sRGB and 40% Adobe RGB. So this laptop is great for performance in the basic category, but struggles in the color gamut range. Next laptop up on the list is the Lenovo Flex 5. This laptop comes with the Ryzen 5 4500U, just like the V14. It has the AMD Radeon 6 graphics, and that Ryzen 5 4500U hits 2.3 gigahertz base clock, 4 gigahertz turbo clock, and it has a 6-core, 6-thread processor. So this is really great for multitasking as well as that basic 1080p video editing. You're going to have 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of solid-state hard drive, a 14-inch display that reaches 59% sRGB and 38% Adobe RGB. So these laptops are not very well known for their ability to do color gamut range, and that really happens because they're more in the budget category. Budget laptops look to save money, and they usually cut on screen costs. So that's a struggle we're seeing here. And these are the estimated prices. So you're seeing up here, this laptop's at $599. When you click through in the link in the description below, you're going to get the actual live price. These are the prices that I saw when I was making this video. All right, next is the Dell Inspiron 14. This comes with the i5-1035G4 with 4 cores, 8 threads, a base clock of 1.2 gigahertz, and a turbo boost of 3.35. It is the Intel Ultra HD graphics, and it has 8 gigs of RAM. Now, this one comes with 126 gigs of solid-state hard drive plus 1 terabyte of standard hard disk drive, which I think is really cool because you can run your system off of the solid-state hard drive for faster performance, but then have a lot of storage with the 1 terabyte hard disk drive. It has a 14-inch full HD display, but unfortunately I could not find specs in the color gamut range. This is a laptop that I've not had in the studio to actually run tests on, but I do have experience with the Inspiron in general, though I couldn't find the color gamut range, sadly. All right, now keep in mind that this video is coming out at a point when lots of laptops are coming out. So if you're thinking, okay, why isn't he listing the latest blah, blah, blah laptop with the latest blah, blah, blah Ryzen processor? Well, right now where we're sitting, there's not a ton of laptops out with Ryzen. Hopefully that's going to change. Hopefully we're going to see a lot more laptops come out with Ryzen in the next 12 to 18 months. So if as we're going through this video, you're like, oh, he's not listing the laptop I'm considering, definitely comment below. Let me know like which laptop you're considering, and ask me if it's a good laptop and what category it would fit in. Also, if you want to hang on to the end of this video, you might be able to troubleshoot that problem yourself per my recommendations on the specs of the laptop. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this video. All right, next laptop up on the list is the Acer Swift 3. It's my favorite laptop in this category. It's going to be the most powerful laptop with an 8-core, 8-thread processor. It's the AMD Ryzen 7 4700U with a base clock of 2.0 and a turbo clock of 4.1 gigahertz. It says the AMD Radeon 7 graphics, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive, and a 14-inch Full HD IPS display. And the previous model of this laptop had a 99% sRGB and a 64% Adobe RGB color gamut range. So this is going to be the best laptop for color gamut and the highest performing laptop in this category. And it comes in at around $649 at the filming of this video. So one thing I would do if you're going to purchase this laptop, and you want to know, okay, what is the color gamut range? I would continue to do your research. If you would like to verify this, reach out to Acer, see if they have this actual information, or wait and see the video actual review on my channel. I'll be getting this laptop in the next couple of weeks from Acer. I'm going to do a full review on this laptop. If you can wait a little bit, I would definitely consider it because I will be reviewing this laptop hopefully very soon. Next is the HP ProBook 455G7. This laptop is coming in around $840 with also the AMD Ryzen 7 4700U with 8 cores, 8 threads, 2.0 gigahertz base clock, and 4.1 gigahertz turbo. It has the AMD 7 graphics, 16 gigs of RAM, so this is the best RAM, 256 gigs of solid state hard drive, 15.6 Full HD IPS display with a color gamut range of 56% sRGB and 36% Adobe RGB. So this laptop has better performance actually than the Acer Swift 3, forgive me for that. But the reason I say the Acer Swift 3 is the best for performance is because I'm considering the screen color gamut range. So for overall performance, well, this has the best power with the 16 gigs of RAM. But you're also paying an extra $200 for this laptop. All right, we're jumping into the advanced 1080p plus basic 4K video editing projects. First and foremost is the Lenovo IdeaPad L340. This is a great laptop to start us off. It's around $738 for really good performance with the i5-9300H, 4-core, 8-thread processor, 2.4 gigahertz base clock with a 4.0 gigahertz turbo clock. This is the first laptop with a dedicated GPU, which is really, really fantastic for video editing. You're going to have really smooth timelines. You're going to have good export times out of Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. And it comes with the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 graphics processing unit. This one has 8 gigs of RAM, so if you want to get even more power out of this laptop, I'd recommend upgrading to 16. And you can get this laptop with 512 gig solid state hard drive, the 15.6 Full HD display, and has a color gamut range of 63% sRGB and 41% Adobe RGB. So I'm going to say this is the area that you're going to see a lot of these laptops lacking in until we move up to the mid-tier to high-end laptops. Color gamut range is something that they definitely scrimp, something. They cut it cheap on, let's just say that. And so this is one of those laptops that you'll see that here. Next is the MSI GF63 Thin. This is one of my favorite laptops as far as running cool and quiet. It has a great cooling system, and so if you want more of a quiet laptop in this category, this is the one I would consider. It comes in around $874. Has the i5-9300H at 4 cores, 8 threads, 2.4 base clock, 4.0 turbo clock, and it too has the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 graphics processing unit, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, 15-inch Full HD display, and has a color gamut range of 56% sRGB, 36% Adobe RGB. Again, not the best RGB range, but if you want to if you're already considering having a external monitor to make your workflow even better, which I personally definitely recommend, and I use external monitors, I will list some in the description below that are color accurate. So what you could do is save some money on the actual laptop and then get that extra monitor you were already going to get and get a color accurate monitor. So the thing is, if you want an extra monitor, but you want color accuracy and you go ahead and you buy a big, an expensive laptop, well then that kind of cuts your budget for the monitor. So, you can kind of balance everything out here considering what you're going to buy. So like I said, I'll list some of those in the description below. If you do make a purchase to that link, like I said, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you guys. All right, next is the MSI Creator 15M. I really like this laptop from MSI. The main reason is the color gamut range. This is one of the best color gamut ranges you're going to see in this category. 100% sRGB and 71% Adobe RGB. This laptop has the i5-9300H with 4 cores, 8 threads, 2.4 base clock, 4.0 turbo clock, and it has the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a 15-inch Full HD display. This is, in my opinion, the top tier laptop in this category. Really great buy. MSI is doing some really good stuff for creators, and this is a pretty solid price point for these specs. Next is the advanced 4K video editing projects. This is going to be the Lenovo Legion 5. This is the latest laptop from the Ryzen processor category. This has the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H, 8 cores, 16 threads, a multitasking beast at a 2.9 gigahertz base clock and a 4.2 turbo clock. The NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a 15.6 Full HD display with a color gamut range that is unfortunately currently unknown. I've not been able to get this laptop in personally, but I wanted to offer this one because it is one of the latest laptops with the new Ryzen processor. And I know a lot of people are wondering, okay, which laptops have the new Ryzen processor? I want a new Ryzen processor. So I'm trying to include more of these on the list to help you guys. I talked to Lenovo recently. They might be sending one of these my way, but no guarantees on that right now. This laptop is actually more affordable than the Creator M. but the Creator M is going to have better color accuracy, so definitely keep that in mind. All right, next is the Lenovo Legion Y540. This laptop is going to have one of my favorite processors for video editing. That is until, the i7-10750H has now come out. But until then, this has been my top recommended processor. It has 6 cores, 12 threads, 2.6 gigahertz base clock, 4.05 turbo, and has an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 graphics processing unit, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a 15.6 Full HD display with a color gamut range of 91% sRGB and 59% Adobe RGB. So pretty solid laptop here. Definitely one of my top recommended, especially at this price point. Pretty good price. I know it doesn't fit into everybody's budget, but it is a very reasonable price for the performance that you get. Next is the Asus TUF A15. I've actually done a full review of this laptop on my channel, so if you're interested in this laptop, you can definitely head on over and check out that video after you watch this one, of course. So this laptop comes with the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H, 2.9 base clock, 4.2 turbo clock, 8 cores, 16 threads, GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a 15.6 Full HD display. But unfortunately, that 66% sRGB and 49% Adobe RGB is really discouraging people because they want that color accuracy, which I fully understand, which is why I recommend getting a laptop with great performance and then getting the external monitor that is color accurate. If you're, like I said, if you're already going to consider getting an external monitor, then you might as well save a bit on the laptop and get a really great external monitor. Because you can have color accurate and color accurate, but unless you're always on the road and you need color accuracy on your laptop screen, it's kind of a trade-off. Personally, I'm always editing on my external monitor anyway. I never edit on my main laptop screen, so it really defeats the purpose for me even having a color accurate laptop screen on this Dell XPS 15 that I use. All right, next is the Asus ROG Strix G. This laptop comes with the i7-9750H processor with 6 cores and 12 threads, a 2.6 GHz base clock, 4.05 turbo, the GeForce GTX 1650, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a color accurate screen of 89% sRGB and 58% Adobe RGB. This is one of my favorite laptops to recommend. 16 gigs of RAM, a great GPU, a fantastic CPU, and at a decent price. Now I say decent because this isn't cheap, but it has a great performance and the color accuracy is modest. It's not great, but it's modest. So if you're considering a mid-range laptop, this is one of my top picks. Next is the Asus Zephyrus G14. This laptop has gotten a lot of press recently with the Ryzen 9 4900HS, 3.0 base clock, 4.3 turbo clock, the RTX 2060 Max Q, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, 14-inch Full HD display, and 100% sRGB and 75% Adobe RGB. Great laptop, great specs. Definitely one to consider if you're wanting a Ryzen processor with good color accuracy and fantastic performance. Definitely recommend this one here. All right, the Razer Blade 15 Base. This is, in my opinion, the MacBook Pro of the Windows laptops. It has fantastic build quality, great sound on the speakers. It's got the speakers up here along the top of the deck. I've heard this at CES, and I thought it sounded very good. Not quite MacBook Pro standards, the new MacBook Pro 16, but definitely getting close as far as the speakers are concerned. And you're going to have more ports than a MacBook Pro. Just keep that in mind. This laptop comes with the 6-core, 12-thread i7-10750H processor, the predecessor of the i7 9th gen that I so love. The 2.6 base clock, turbo clock of 4.05, NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a color gamut range of 91% sRGB and 59% Adobe RGB. If you're looking for, somewhat of a budget-friendly MacBook Pro, so to speak, and you are okay with using the Windows platform, the Windows operating system, this is an awesome buy. I mean, you're basically saving around $1,000 when you look at this laptop and what it gives you. So definitely consider that. The Acer Predator Helios 300, this is the #1 selling laptop on my channel for last year and so far this year. People are loving this laptop. I personally like this laptop a lot. It has a full aluminum design. It's got great performance at a great price point. So if you're looking for a good mid-range video editing laptop, you're also maybe somebody who does some gaming, this is a great buy. This laptop comes with the i7-9750H, turbo boost up to 4.0 gigahertz, and a base clock of 2.6. The NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive, and a 15.6-inch Full HD display of 93% sRGB and 60% Adobe RGB. So not only is it, pretty good price, great performance, but it has decent color accuracy, which is awesome. This is the fraternal twin of the Acer Predator Helios 300. It is the Acer Concept D3, a fantastic laptop being put out by Acer that is for content creators. Now, this laptop's price is currently unknown and, as far as I can tell, basically unavailable everywhere. Okay, so then you're thinking, okay, then why did you include it? Because this laptop is kind of the best of both worlds. When it was available, it was at around $1,600, okay? It has 99% sRGB, 100% DCI-P3, and according to my test, 100% Adobe RGB. It has an i7-9750H processor. It has a GTX 1650 graphics processing unit, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive. There is no laptop currently available that pulls all of these specs together into one laptop. I've done a full review, multiple full reviews on this laptop, so if you head on over to my channel, you can check it out. Hopefully they release some new models soon. Hopefully the 2020 or 2021s come out and we can get more of these into the market, because I think these are a fantastic mid-range buy for color accuracy and performance. So keep an eye out on this laptop. Hopefully we'll get some out soon, but I just wanted to let you know about this laptop because I really think it's a great buy. The Gigabyte Aero 15, also one that fits into the laptop category with the Acer Concept D3. It is 100% color accurate in sRGB and Adobe RGB. It's around $1,600 to $1,700 depending on the model you get. And the one that we have featured here at that price point has the i7-9750H, a GTX 1660 Ti, and 16 gigs of RAM, as well as 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive. This laptop is super cool as well because they actually send it through a Pantone certification process where each laptop coming out of the factory is tested to make sure that the color gamut range is up to par with the specs that they promise. So this laptop is one of my favorites. It was what I consider my best in show at CES 2020. So definitely keep an eye on this laptop and consider it if you're going to be making a purchase. The Dell XPS 15 7590. This laptop is my daily driver. So this is the laptop I use on the day-to-day. I have an older iteration of it, but this is the same build up that I have. This one comes with the i7-9750H, 16 gigs of RAM. This laptop comes with the i7-9750H, base clock of 2.6, turbo clock of 4.05, 6 cores, 12 threads. The GeForce GTX 1650 graphics processing unit, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of solid state storage, and a 4K display that is 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB color accurate. So this is a great laptop that's all aluminum, thin, with great performance at a medium to high price point at this point. But if you're looking for build quality, performance, and color accuracy, this is a fantastic laptop. Next is the Dell XPS 15 9500. This is the most recent Dell XPS on the market. I was able to find one on Amazon, but they're slowly making their way to market. I wanted to include it just because I know a lot of you are going to be thinking about it. And I will say that yes, it is absolutely a fantastic buy for video editing. It's around $1,800 to $2,000 depending on the price point that you get. It could be a little less because this one has like 32 to 64 gigs of RAM and a terabyte SSD storage. So it could be a little bit less if you get less RAM and storage. But you're going to see this one has 8 cores and 16 threads with the i7-10875H processor. And it also has 32 to 64 gigs of RAM. Has a color gamut range of 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB as well. So the newest Dell XPS 15 is a great buy as well. Next is a Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Extreme. I took a look at this laptop at CES 2020. It is a great laptop, well built, great performance. It has the i7-9750H, a GTX 1650 graphics processing unit, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, and a 15-inch Full HD display with a color gamut range of 99% sRGB and 68% Adobe RGB. Not a great color gamut range, not gonna lie, not amazing like the two laptops before, but still good color gamut range. The only thing that I say it's not great is because of this price point. I mean, if you're going to be at this price point, in my opinion, by this day and age, you need to start stepping up your game with color accuracy, especially for creators. Next is the MacBook Pro 16, one of my favorite laptops, again. Now, for a long time, let me pull this back up. Haven't looked at y'all in a while. For a long time, the Mac was struggling, in my opinion. From about 2016 to 2017, about 2016 2018, I would say the MacBook Pro was struggling. Then in 2019, they finally came out with what I would consider a creator-focused laptop. So this laptop has the performance that you need as a video editor, graphic designer, photographer, to actually get the task done that you're looking to accomplish. And it has the build quality to do so as well. Hashtag get rid of that butterfly keyboard. All right, this laptop comes with the latest i7-9750H processor, 6 cores and 12 threads with a base clock of 2.6 gigahertz and 4.05 turbo clock. We have an AMD Radeon Pro 5300M with 4 gigs of VRAM. Now, for 4K video editing, that is plenty, honestly. And a lot of people are saying, I want to get the higher grade model, I want to get the i9. Honestly, this i7, if you watch my review on it, you're getting the fastest export times out of any i7 processor on the market. So this is plenty of laptop for graphic designers, video editors, and photographers. I feature the other MacBook Pro with the i9 and the higher end GPU later in this video because I think that is a laptop that you'll consider for 6K. That's a laptop you'll consider for like full-on After Effects rig. But for 4K video editing, this laptop will be plenty. You can check the comment section of that video. A lot of people are agreeing after purchasing the laptop. They're saying, yes, this was the perfect amount of performance. I didn't need to spend way more money. If you want to upgrade one thing on this laptop, I'd consider upgrading the RAM to 32 gigs. Otherwise, this laptop is pro, in my opinion. They've done a great job with this laptop. All right, next is the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo, the ultimate workflow laptop. In my opinion, this is a fantastic laptop for workflow. Asus knocked it out of the park with this dual screen laptop. I love how you can have the timeline on the bottom screen and have all of your effects and your visual panel on the top screen. I think it's a really neat concept. I used it at CES quite a bit, and it was a lot of fun and very effective for workflow. This laptop comes with the i7-9750H, the RTX 2060 GPU, which is a fantastic GPU, great for the timeline, great for rendering, just a good buy. It's a good medium to high-end GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive, and a 4K 15.6-inch display at 81% sRGB and 62% Adobe RGB. Next is the advanced 6K video editing projects. Like I said, maybe 8K, but honestly, if you're going for 8K, I'm going to lean you towards a desktop rig. Starting us out is the Asus ProArt StudioBook Pro 17. This laptop comes with the Intel Xeon E2276M with 6 cores and 12 threads, a 2.8 GHz base clock, and a 4.7 GHz turbo clock. The NVIDIA Quadro RTX 3000, which I'll explain and talk about more later in the video, 32 gigs of RAM, 2 terabytes of solid-state storage, 17-inch Full HD display with a color gamut range of 99% sRGB, 75% Adobe RGB, and 97% DCI-P3 color accuracy. Next is the MacBook Pro 16 with the i9-9980H processor, the AMD Radeon Pro 5500M, 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of solid-state storage, 16-inch Full HD display, color gamut range of 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. And this is the Retina display, but it doesn't really have, it's sitting in its own classification. So this laptop is great for 6K video editing. It is fantastic for After Effects and any rendering that you're going to be doing. This is really your 3D After Effects 6K Apple MacBook Pro editing laptop. Now, if you want to just dump a bucket of cash into the Mac Pro Tower, by all means. But if you want to be on a decent budget, have a portable laptop, this is going to be my recommendation. Next is the Razer Blade 15 Studio Edition. People are considering this the MacBook Pro killer. I'm on the fence about it. If you love Mac, then obviously you'll just go with Mac in my opinion. But if you're considering Windows, it is a great powerhouse for that. You have the i7-9750H processor, the NVIDIA Quadro RTX 5000, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of solid state storage, a 15.6-inch 4K OLED display at 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. So great laptop, great specs for this 6K category. Last but not least is the Gigabyte Aero 15. I played around with this laptop a good bit at CES, and we were doing some like rendering and timeline playback tests with 6K footage. And with this RTX 2080 Supermax Q turned on, it literally breezed through the playback of 6K footage like you wouldn't believe. So this has the 8-core 16-thread i9-1098HK with a base clock of 2.4, a turbo clock of 5.3. This comes with either 32 or 64 gigs of RAM, depending on where you buy it through in the links below, if you decide to make a purchase. And there's 512 gigs of solid state hard drive, a 15.6-inch display, and 100% sRGB along with 100% Adobe RGB. Definitely a fantastic laptop. One of my top recommendations for this category. All right. This is the point in the video that I am most excited about because it is what equips you to make a good purchasing decision on your own terms. It's how you understand, okay, the specs do what in the laptop and which specs should I get and what is the performance I need for the exact use case that I, for you, the user, are going to be getting. So we're going to dive into this right now. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is the processors. So Ryzen H and Intel H processors. These are something like the Ryzen 9 4900HS, or the Ryzen 7 4800HS, or the Intel i5 9300H, or the i7 9750H, or the 10750H. Okay, so these processors are going to be the highest performing processors offered by Intel and Ryzen. They are going to beat out most, if not all, of the U processors. Now, there's a little bit of competition happening here between the Ryzen 5 4500U and, say, the i5 9300H. There's a little bit of competition happening there. But overall, if you see an H processor, it is going to be most likely more powerful, especially if it's one of the newer generations, either a 9th or 10th generation from Intel. And if it's a 4000 series from Ryzen, they're going to be beating out the U series and the G series processors. They're just made to perform at a higher speed. Okay, next on the list, we have the Ryzen 4000 U series and the Intel G and U series. That's something like the Ryzen 7 4700U, the Ryzen 5 4500U, the i7 1065G7, the i5 1035G7. These are processors that fit along this category of performance. So we're going to say these were the advanced 1080p and 4K processors. These were the 1080p and maybe some slight advanced 1080p, but more along the basic 1080p. And as we get down here, these are going to be the basic, definitely basic 1080p. And then as we move down here, you're not really even going to be able to edit video on these guys down here. The Ryzen 3000 series, the i3, I don't personally recommend these processors. I just don't think they have enough power. This is just a basic walkthrough of how to really categorize the processors. If you want a full guide on the processors, about how to choose your processor and where they stand in the list of all the processors as far as performance is concerned, I've created an entire guide in a Google Sheet that you can click in the description below and go through that sheet and see laptops that I recommend according to where they fit in the scale of best to least performing. And you can also just click through the laptops and see which laptops are available from each of these processors. That is an extremely helpful guide. I definitely recommend getting it, and it'll give you more clarity than me spending an hour talking about which processor and why, because it's just listed out in succinct order. So I know that'll definitely be helpful to you. Next is the graphics processing units. The NVIDIA Quadro RTX 5000. This is for professionals rather than gamers. This is how they're marketing these processors. I personally don't know if they're that much better. Why? Because we've only had a handful of laptops come out with them, which I have actually not personally been able to get my hands on. So it's kind of fishy in my opinion. I think they're doing good. NVIDIA is doing good to try and put out processors that are optimized for video editing, for After Effects, but without enough laptops on the market to really benchmark them against the GeForce, quote unquote gaming processors, we don't know what to think, because right off the bat, the RTX 2080 Ti destroys the Quadro 5000. But then again, the standard 2080 is about 5% slower than the Quadro. But slower what? This is just some user benchmark tests that we're seeing. So, without getting a lot of people video editing and testing these laptops for that, we're not quite sure if this Quadro is really the answer to getting better GPUs, or if we're just waiting for the new RTX 3000 series. Now, as far as RTX versus GTX is concerned, the RTX are the higher end category. I had somebody ask that recently. This, what's the difference between RTX and GTX? More CUDA cores. That is basically the answer. You're going to get more power, maybe better cooling systems so you can run at a higher performance level. I always recommend user benchmark to check out the different specs and the differences between GPUs and CPUs to kind of put them head to head. People say that's not like strong enough data, but it gives you a good benchmark to see, okay, this one's going to be slightly more performing than this one. And now I'm going to go look at maybe a dedicated video about somebody testing it for video editing to see if I like the performance that laptop ends up getting. That's my recommendation. I recommend really going through the buyer's processes, using my videos, using even other people's videos if I haven't been able to proof and really review the laptops. Just do your homework. That's my recommendation. This is a big purchase and you want to make sure you're getting what you pay for. Okay, next is the NVIDIA RTX 2070 and 2060. These are great for motion design and 6K footage. Really great performing GPUs. They're going to be in the more expensive laptops and anywhere from this $1,700 to $3,000 range. The AMD Radeon 5500M with 8 gigs of VRAM. This again is going to be for motion design and 6K footage. This is the GPU found within the MacBook Pro. Next is the NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti. This is one of my favorite graphics processing units because it's a really nice middle-of-the-road graphics processing unit. It's got great performance, not quite a 2060 or 2070, but not as low as, maybe some of the 1650s and 1050s that have come out in the past. This laptop really hits the middle of the road very well, and it comes in at usually pretty solid price points. Like I said, good for 1080p and 4K without any problems. Next is the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650. This is great for 1080p and some 4K medium-sized projects. After that is the slightly older GTX 1050 and also, let's say, the 1050 Ti. That is the GPU that's found in my current laptop, the Dell XPS 15. And then now we even have like the 1050 Ti in, say, the 9570. And then there's the 1650, which is in the 7590. And now the 9500, the Dell XPS 9500, has a 1650 Ti, if I'm not mistaken. So keep those different things in mind. As the newer laptops come out, we always have newer GPUs, faster GPUs, and it's just the name of the game. All right, NVIDIA GeForce MX series, I would say for light 1080p projects. These aren't really great dedicated GPUs. They're more of like mobile GPUs. I'm not a huge fan of these, but if it fits in your budget, then, they're a good buy. But they're just not what I would consider powerful, like these in the semi to medium price point. All right, next we're looking at RAM, random access memory, or just memory. Never say RAM memory because people will hate you for it. I say RAM memory on accident. It's just a filthy habit. And everybody always comments and says, RAM memory, I'm getting an aneurysm from this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's a filthy habit. So I'm working on it. But, old habits die hard, as they say. So RAM or memory. Do not say RAM memory if you want to sound intelligent. 4 gigs of RAM, I suggest never pursuing this amount of RAM for video editing. See right there. I even put RAM memory in my title. It's such a bad habit. You can definitely try, but I show you a test in a moment of how much RAM Premiere Pro uses just to get started, so like just to open the program. So we're going to talk about how much RAM I think you should use in a test that I'll show here in just a minute once we finish talking through this. Next is 8 gigs. This is for light 1080p video editing, but tends to get overloaded and slow down quickly as you start to work inside of the program, whether that be DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro. 16 gigs is my recommended baseline for the best experience in 1080p and 4K, and it's also Adobe's recommendation is to start at 16 gigs of RAM. 32 gigs of RAM is my personal favorite, and it's also Adobe's recommended. As far as like their like Premiere recommended, this is like their baseline, like don't go below this, and this is what they say, yes, this is like awesome for our program. It's my personal favorite. I think it's plenty of RAM for 4K video editing and maybe even some 6K video editing. 64 gigs of RAM is for peak performance in 4K and motion design and no problems with 6K video editing. All right, now we're going to jump into a live test that I've run and show you guys how much RAM is consumed within Premiere Pro and why I think 16 gigs of RAM is the baseline. All right, now before we go ahead and open up Premiere Pro and some other programs to see how much RAM usage takes place, I want to show you how much RAM we're using just to open up the computer and be, running without any programs open. Now, right now I do have my screen recorder open and Task Manager, but the screen recorder is only using about half a gig of RAM, so we can count that off. But as I open my computer at a standstill, I'm already using about 6.5, almost 7 gigs of RAM, not including the screen recorder, as I just mentioned. And as we look at all these different background processes that are taking place, we are consuming a substantial amount of RAM just off of these background tasks. Now, I could close down, maybe this Norton security that I really don't need running in the background personally, or maybe the notifications manager from Adobe. But overall, I want background tasks running because it's what runs my computer. And so if you're not super technically savvy, kind of like myself when it comes to these sort of background processes, I'm not really going to know what to shut down. I don't know what necessarily should be running in order to make sure my system runs smoothly. And so just that alone, like I said, we're starting off at about 7 gigs of RAM. So just to run the computer, we're almost out of RAM, which is why my recommended 16 gigs of RAM for video editing to me is important to consider. That is, unless you're a background processes master and know which ones to shut down. And in that case, please comment below and instruct us on what to do in this case. But here we go. We're just going to open up Premiere Pro now and take a look at how much RAM usage happens just from opening the program. All right, so now to open up Premiere Pro, it looks like we're going to be using a little bit over half a gig of RAM. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up a project and click play in the timeline to see how much we used at that point. All right, as we open up a project, we're now to about 2 gigs of RAM usage. Now I'm going to click play in the timeline and see how much we go up to from there. All right, as we click play and it starts to spool up, I'm seeing we're using about 2.5 gigs of RAM, and we're heading up slowly towards 3 gigs of RAM usage. Okay. All right, now I'm going to render out some of these files here. You can see some of these different motion graphics. I'm going to render these out and see how much RAM usage we take at that point. So right now, just as we're sitting running through the playback, we're using about 10 gigs of RAM. So you can see where that 16 gigs can really come in handy, not only running your background tasks, but also then using Premiere Pro. All right, so let's go ahead and get back over here. I'm going to pause this and click enter to start rendering out the files. And now as I'm starting to render out the files, we're seeing obviously a lot of CPU usage. But then look at this, how much RAM we're using to render out these files. About 10 gigs of RAM alone. This is a 1080p project, so this isn't 4K, and we're rendering out motion graphics right now, and this timeline is about a 20-minute timeline. And we're rendering out about 6,000 to 7,000 frames for different motion design clips inside of the project. So we're sitting at about 5.5 gigs once it's leveled off, bouncing towards 6 occasionally, but still, I mean, that's the usage here in Premiere Pro. Then we go over to our performance and we're using almost 16 gigs of RAM. So see, that's why I think it's very important to have a baseline of 16 gigs, because you have processes, perhaps, let's see, maybe, oh, I need to look something up on Google while I'm rendering something out. So let's open up here a tab in Google. Or Google Chrome, sorry. And now we open up something in Google Chrome, and now we're using another half gig of RAM. And say, I open up a couple tabs down here. You can't see this, but I'm going to open up a couple tabs, and then I'll show you here in a second. So now I'm opening up a few more tabs. Now we're up to about a gig of RAM. And so you see it can quickly spend your RAM in a hurry. All right, now I'm going to head over and I'm going to open up Affinity Photo, which is very similar to Photoshop, and we're going to see how much RAM we start to consume at that point. So not much usage within Affinity Photo, about a half a gig of memory, but that's still affecting the overall usage of our RAM. So if I go into performance, I'm going to look, I'm using about 16 gigs of RAM between the 3 programs plus all the background tasks that are happening right now. So that's why my recommended minimum is 16 gigs of RAM, because you use it way faster, or excuse me, I use it way faster than I realize. I'm running 32 gigs of RAM and I'm at about half of my RAM usage. All right, let's talk about storage. A hard disk drive is a plate in an ARM system that manually reads and writes information on your hard drive, whereas SSD is an immediate read and write system, kind of like a thumb drive. So it's just like a flash drive, whatever you want to call it. So it reads and writes on the system without any moving parts. I've explained this like trying to look up a word in a thesaurus. So if I want to look up the word optimism and I have a thesaurus on the bookshelf in my office. So I'm going to walk over to the bookshelf. I'm going to pick up the book. I'm going to flip to the word thesaurus. This is manually me looking for a word. So I find the word optimism and I say, okay, it means X. Then I take my phone out and I just open my phone and I type in optimism definition or optimism in thesaurus, whatever it might be. And immediately I'll have my answer. So it's faster and more immediate. It grabs the information right from my phone rather than me going and finding it manually in the book. So that's kind of the easiest definition that I can really break down between a hard disk drive and a solid state hard drive. Now, hard disk drives are going to be slightly less reliable because of the moving parts, whereas solid state hard drives, they don't have moving parts, there's less to break. And now with the new M.2 drives, which are basically like, they literally look like a thumb drive, they're like this big, they're really small. You're going to have even better performance because they don't have data cables to go through, they hook directly into your motherboard. More videos and more conversations on that, you can check it out in the YouTube cards above or the description below if you're curious about storage and all the different tech terms behind it, whether it be M.2 versus NVMe versus PCIe versus SATA. You can watch the dedicated video on that and learn more about storage and what your different options are. I recommend SSD. It is your choice if you want to pursue a specific option, but I recommend at least going with a solid state drive. All right, so that concludes the ultimate guide for choosing a video editing laptop in 2020. If that wasn't your ultimate guide, if you're missing something, you're like, I didn't get this question answered, comment below. Let me know. I'd love to answer that question for you and even make a dedicated video for you. Again, if you're ready to make a purchase, you can head down into the description below and click one of those links. Now, if you do make a purchase through that link, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. But that's what keeps this channel alive and helpful content coming your way. I'm Benji Kaiser, and I'll see you here on the next episode.